My name is Theo. I'm here to introduce the model KX2600 KV for KiboMed. This is a pretty general use ultrasound machine that can be used for both large and small animals. It has the ability to take 4 different probes and is ideal if your budget is in the $3,000 range or less. Specifically, this screen has a 10-inch screen. There's a USB port for saving images and files. You can also hook this up to printers for printing images on site. And also you can save internally if you're out and about and can't print or save at the time. This machine, like I said, once again, is good for both large and small animals. The 2 probes we have here, right now this is, if I can hold it here, this is a curved probe, micro-convex, and this one has a frequency range from 5 to 8.5. So that's a higher frequency, which means higher resolution and better image quality. A lot of the other competition's machines, such like a WED918, for example, they'll have the same type of probe, except your frequency is going to be a lot less. You'll be probably closer from 3 to 5 megahertz. And that function provides much lesser quality images, especially for smaller animals. So while that's okay for large animals, if you're only doing large animals, that's good. This one lets you do both. So it's the best of both worlds. Another one, this is a linear probe, also a rectal probe for animals. The face plate here you can see is pretty large. These are 70 millimeters, so 7 centimeters. A lot of the other machines are smaller, so the smaller the field of view here, smaller in millimeters, the smaller the image, the less clear. It's just better to have a bigger screen and more imaging. So that's another positive thing about this machine. Other aspects, this machine comes with other languages preset. You can have French, Russian, Chinese, English of course, Portuguese, and Spanish of course. So as for now, we'll have some videos later on. We'll show the functions, the use, but once again, the KX2600 KV is an excellent machine for beginners and for everybody in between. Hi again, this is Theo, and I'm here for KiboMed to go over our ultrasound machine, the model KX2600 KV. We're just going to go over some of the basic features of the machine, on why it's such a good machine, some of the hookups, the probes, and so at least you can get a good once-over of what the machine is like. So starting from the beginning, the model KX2600 KV is one of the best small ultrasound machines, both from a price range and for image quality for what you get. If you're in the budget of around $3,000 or less, the K2600 KV is a good choice to start with. Just some quick layouts of the machine. You can see we have a CRT screen, so it's updating on the way you're looking at it going up, that is only seen on a CRT monitor when it's videotaped recorded, but in person you will not see that, so don't think the image quality is poor. That's just how all CRT monitors record. You have your standard keyboard with buttons. On this side of the machine you have capability for 2 probes to be hooked up at the same time, so you don't have to switch probes constantly. So if you're doing a procedure, you're looking at more than one different type of animal, or if you're using this for human use, you can have more than one probe hooked up at a time, and you'll easily switch to. Sometimes machines only have one hookup, and that's kind of an inconvenience. Going to the back here, we have several different hookups. So we obviously have our power cord, we have power cable, on-off switch, we have capability of USB hookup. So when you save your images, you can have a video out setup. So if you have a room or a classroom and show people how to use it, or you're presenting it, you can show the image on a screen. You can also have an output to a printer of some sort. So if you can't save, or if you want to print out right away, you can do that. So these are all standard functions on most machines, but are kind of really nice and compact. And we have 2 hookups for probes. It's definitely a good machine. So I'll go some of the other features now about the machine. One of the features that stands out about us is our curve probe. So we have some gel here so you can at least see the image, but our probe has capability to go from 5 to 8.5 megahertz. Some of our competition usually only produces curved probes like this, or they provide you with them, that only go from 3 to 5 megahertz. And what that does is having a higher frequency allows for better quality, better resolution. So if you're doing smaller animals, this machine does not only large but small animals better than our competition's machines. The other probe that we have here is a linear or rectal probe, and the great thing about this one is the size of the probe. So a lot of the competition, once again, provides you with small probes, so small footprint. Ours is 70 millimeters, 7 centimeters, and that is good because the larger the probe size, the larger the screen shot will be. So if you're looking at ovaries, for example, or whatever the case is on an animal, you want to have as much of an image as possible rather than a small image, so you can see everything on one screen. So a lot of, like I said, to recap, a lot of the companies that make other machines will say you have 40, 45, 50, so definitely a significant difference between our 70 and what everybody else has. Another advantage is that this machine has more than one language capability, so it's English, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, Portuguese, and even Russian. So just in case, for some people that's important to have one or more languages available. Another advantage is that this machine has calculation packages for several different animals, and can also be used for humans if the right software is selected and purchased. So you can do both people and vet stuff, so it's the best of both worlds again. Once again, this machine is one of our best small selling machines in the price range that it's at. It gets everything that you would need from an ultrasound machine with added features and benefits, and it's a great machine overall. Hi again, this is Theo for KiboMed. This is going to be video 3 of 3 for our ultrasound model KX2600 KV. For this video we're going to go over some of the functions for the brightness of the screen, the monitor, the keyboard, how to save, print, and store, in addition to export images. So this is all stuff that everybody needs to know. We'll start off with our patient button. So this is something that everybody should use before acquiring images. You'll hit your patient button, and this allows you to enter a name, ID number, age, and gender. Some of that varies for different vets. Some people like to fill that out, other people don't. We have these options available for you, so it's there if you need it. So in this image we used our name, KiboVet, and as you can see the name came up. Our ID number was left blank, and in this case it came up blank. The next step we're going to do is saving pictures and show you how to export them and save them and take them to other devices. So if, let's say, we wanted to save this image, first thing we're going to do is hit our freeze button, which is the snowflake. Always start off with that. From there we're going to hit our print button. Now once we do this, there are several options available. So we can store the image to C, which is the hard drive for the machine. We can store the image to U, so if you have a USB drive, you can save it directly to that. Or you can, option 3, print the image if you have a printer hooked up to this machine. Most popular is straight to the USB because people like to take it out then, take it to another computer to email, to show their colleagues, or whatever the case is. But another popular way is straight to the hard drive. So we'll click on store image. Let's try and see because we don't have a USB in there right now. It goes to a percentage. Once it's done, that's it. You hit freeze again, cancel, and exit, and then you're good. And that takes you back to the image that you're doing. If we want to pull up images, for example, let's say you just took a picture of something, you couldn't remember the image, you need to report that or send that out, you'll go to your store recall button. So you can hit store recall. And on the right side here, you'll have a couple different options. So in most cases, you're going to be using this, which is the Open BMP. So we select that, and that comes up with this folder here. What that allows us to do is select which drive. So in this case, this is our hard drive. We can select which image. So the computer puts a number to each picture based on date and time. And that's all thoroughly explained in the manual. So if you have questions on exactly how that is, you can look that up. You can also change those if necessary, but we're not going to go over that now. But essentially, you pick the drive, the file, and then you can open the file, you can delete the file, or you can copy it to you, which is copy it to the USB drive. So basically, just like a regular computer, you can save, delete, clear this out, or transfer it to a different machine if necessary. So we're just going to exit out of this. Now we're going to stay back in this store recall page because there's a couple of other options we can use. So the Open BMP is how we're going to save, export, or delete it. A mass copy is, let's say you have 10, 12, 15, 14 patients, you put different ID numbers, all that other stuff. That allows you to dump the whole hard drive onto a USB. So if you did 10, 20, 30 patients, you want to do them in time, you're at a specific location, you just want to dump it to a USB drive for the day, you click on that and you're done. So it's pretty easy. Next, the last two is pretty much going to be for formatting and splash screen. You shouldn't really be formatting it unless you're not deleting your files. That's something most users will not be using. Once you format it, you have to use this splash screen button, and that's explained in the manual, but like I said, once again, that's not something that most people are going to use on a daily basis. Continuing on, so that's pretty much how we save, store, delete, and export images. A couple of the last basic items we're going to use. Obviously, we have a keyboard here. It's your standard keyboard, numbers, letters, caps lock, shift, self-explanatory. Everybody hopefully knows that. The other part that I didn't cover in the other video is our TGC and gain buttons. So gain is the overall brightness of the ultrasound image. That has nothing to do with the screen settings for the monitor, but rather how the computer puts the images together. So if I increase the gain, and there's a number that's associated right here, GN127, that increases the overall brightness of the image. If I go down, it decreases it. So things that you'll need to change it for. For example, if you're looking at a bladder, liquid does not have a lot of distortion. It doesn't lose signal strength. So you will need a lower gain to see below the bladder. Whereas if you're going through a dense liver or a piece of muscle, you will lose some of that signal strength. You might have to increase it to see adequately. Also, we have something called a TGC. So you can physically adjust the brightness in different aspects of the computer. So I can make the bottom really bright, middle kind of dark, as you can see. Here you go. Again, you can have bright, light, dark, all variations. Usually what most people do is kind of in the middle with a slight offset to the left, to the right and the bottom. So this is usually lighter, less enhancement at the top and more at the bottom, because the deeper you go in tissue, you usually need a little bit more gain. And then finally, we also have adjustments for the actual screen. So you can increase the overall darkness and brightness of the screen, the contrast as well, the grayscale, the black and white, for your own preference. And that's just the standard setting on the machine. And once again, before we go, let's not forget that the updating you see on the images, because it's a CRT monitor, and it has nothing to do with the updating in person, that won't exist. So that concludes our third video for KiboMed for our ultrasound machine. Hopefully you'll be able to learn something, and if you have more questions, feel free to look at the manual that comes with the machine. It goes over everything that we covered in the last 3 videos. Thanks very much. My name's Theo, and this is part 2 of 3 for KiboMed's display of the model KX2600 KV ultrasound machine. For this part, we're going to go over some more of the features of the keyboard, so if you want to come on in and take a look. We're going to start off with the area right about the trackball. So the trackball controls our cursor, and that's essentially the mouse of the machine. We're just going to start in the middle, and then go to the left, and then come back and finish the right side. So these buttons, and specifically focus, is essentially self-explanatory. That adjust the number of foci that you see on the screen. So we start off with 1, you can have 2, 3, 4, and we can adjust the height of those depending on the number. So with the keys I can move it up and down, and with the focus button I increase the number. So focus is basically helps you obtain a better image quality. If you have a lot of focus, that sometimes slows the machine down for the frame rate because the computer is putting together a better image. From there, the other button that you're going to be used a lot is a waveform followed by an F. And this basically controls the frequency that you're using for the specific ultrasound probe. Now with this machine you can adjust it from 9 all the way down to 5 megahertz in this setting. The higher the frequency, the better the resolution, but the less depth that you can see clearer. If you want to go really deep or for a really large animal, you'll decrease the frequency to a lower setting so that you can go deeper and still get good resolution. But it will not be equivalent to the resolution that you'd have on something of 9 megahertz. Moving along, there's another simple button. This is kind of like a zoom button, looks like a magnifying glass in my opinion. This will control your depth. So you basically use it to hit the depth all the way in or all the way out. And you can see the depth control here, and I believe that's in millimeters, so you'll come down, it converts to centimeters. And so you just zoom in if necessary for a lesser depth if what you're looking at specifically is in the near field versus the far field. So we'll just go back to the zoomed out setting. Moving along, this button here is a screen within the screen. That's our high resolution, high zoom button. So let's say you want to look specifically at a cyst or a fetus or something along those lines, you will click, and what happens is you'll get a small screen. That screen, you can't see it here. Let me put some gel on our probe so we can see what it does. That screen, wherever you have it selected, will zoom in this specific area on your screen. So if you have a cyst or follicle or an artery or a vessel, whatever you're looking at, and you want to do high resolution zoom, you can have the rest of the screen live and then just use this over the area and it'll always come up here. Okay? Moving along, this specifically, the D plus button, if you're doing a measurement, that will switch your starting and ending point. So if you're doing like an ellipse, a circle, something for the OB calcs or packages, or some or complicated measurements, it'll switch the starting point between points so that you can pick and choose and adjust, because sometimes it's a little trickier to get those ellipses on target for what you're looking for. Next, the set button, that kind of is our selection button, where we've used that a couple times. Everybody shouldn't have any trouble using that. We're going to jump over here to the other side. So what this does, this is another button that's really not used as much. It does something with frame correlation. So it puts images together faster, more of them together, so it sharpens the image or decreases the sharpness of the image. Something really you won't be using as well. Another button that may be used at times is the should we start again? That's okay. Hi, my name is Theo again for KiboMed, and we're going to be going over some of the specific details and function on how to use our ultrasound machine, the KX2600 KV. Just a quick note before we get started, you can see the refresh going on in the screen. That's because this is a CRT monitor, and that's only seen through a video recording like this. In person, you will not have that type of a refresh rate. So just to get started, we're going to start on the right side of the screen here, and the keyboard. The first button we're looking at is our preset button. So as you can see here, we have 4 functions that come up when we have the preset, when we hit our preset button. The first one, you click on normal, and you won't always have to do these functions, is you will get a screen like this. And here you select your date, the time. There's a standard default as a hospital, but you can use that as your clinic name. So when you input this, it'll always be under that when you're saving your images. And then there's date, time, and other settings. Next one is formula. That's specifically just for animal formulas if you're doing OB functions and calculations. You won't have to mess with these pretty much ever, but it is an option for some people and some vets that like to adjust it to their specifications or to their preferences. Another option is you can have a password set up. That's basically just like a password on a computer. You can lock the machine, but it's important that you don't lose it because it's tricky if you lose it for us to come and reset that. And then finally, it's just about, that just provides our information, nothing really too interesting. Back to the keyboard here, we have the next button here. This is the ultrasound probe button. It's kind of a standard image for ultrasound probes, and that just selects between your ultrasound probes. So when I hit it, it automatically switches. This is our linear probe now, which you can see over here. And then when we press it again, it goes back to our curved probe, which can be seen over here. So you can see how the image screen changes. Moving along, next button that's probably going to be used by a lot of people is the comment button that's right over here. So in order to place a comment on the image, the first thing you need to do is the freeze button. So we're going to go down to the corner, the snowflake. So that's kind of a standard image that ultrasound machines use, either the word freeze or a snowflake or something along those lines. But that means to freeze the image that you've obtained. So you always hit that first. You'll then hit your comment button. And then a little cursor like this will come up, and that's pretty standard for computers. All you have to do after that is hit set, and then you can begin typing and whatever text you want. So I'll just put test, and that's how you'll input text onto your exams or tests. Next button right underneath that is the body marker. So if you're doing an exam on horses or animals or hearts, you can clearly see there's all different types of functions. These are not really used by everybody, but some people like to have image markers depending on what they're imaging. That's more of a user preference, but it is available. Moving along, there's two buttons here, IP and IE. So those are specifically related to the physics behind the ultrasound machine, and we can cover those a little bit later. But that's basically, the IP stands for image post-processing, and the IE stands for image edge enhancement. And what that does, the post-processing is how the machine does some of the physics calculations with the images it obtains, and the IE is edge enhancement, how it kind of overlays and adjusts the images as well. Really, you don't have to worry about that. Some people who are very savvy with these machines like to play with those buttons, so it is available. The next two buttons that probably will be used often are going to be B mesh and M mesh, and those are just short for B measurement and M measurement. As you know, B mode, which is what we're in, is the standard image. So in order to measure, what you're going to do is hit the freeze button again, hit your B measurement button, and you come up with a cursor here, a little plus sign. And what you do is, let's say you're measuring the size of a cyst or a follicle or a liver or whatever the case would be, you set your first set point, click set, and then another asterisk comes up, you come across, and you'll have a distance measurement. And you can keep doing that as many follicles or as many times, as many distances. It's just an example. So it comes up in millimeters on the other side here. Now that same function is available. I'm just going to exit our B mode, and we're going to go to M mode. So this would be like if you're measuring heart rate, for example, and this is just the same thing as in B mode except in M mode. So you're going to freeze, hit your measurement button, and here you can select heart rate or time depending on what you're measuring, usually for cardiac settings. So you can measure heartbeats, the amount of time it takes for valves to open and close and whatnot. It's all kind of user specific. Going back to the B mode, something I forgot to mention is when you freeze and you go back, you can also pick, aside from distance, you can do things like ellipses and calc packages for OB settings, so you can measure everything you really need to measure. Continuing on with this section, there's 5 other buttons I want to go over really quickly, and those are just different variations of the home screen. So the B mode is the standard screen that you always see. When we go to, let me just switch out here. When we go to B/B, that's a dual screen setup. So you can have an image of, let's say, something prior to an aspiration. You'll freeze, take the next image, and then this is an image either maybe after an aspiration of a cyst or an injection or something along those lines. 4B is the same variation of that, except instead of 2, you can have 4 screens. So you can have 4 separate images on one animal and one person, all different variations of a contraction of a heart maybe, or a flexation of a muscle, biopsies, etc. Another mode that we have is B/M mode. So here you'll have a heart beating, and then this will be the waves that you're measuring on the heart. And then finally, of course, you have simply just M mode. And that's just pretty much for cardiac functions. So that's the first video that we're going to do. There'll be 2 others, so stay tuned, and we'll see you soon. Hello, my name is Theo. I'm here to introduce the model KX2600 KV for KivoMed. This is a pretty general use ultrasound machine that can be used for both large and small animals. It has the ability to take 4 different probes and is ideal if your budget is in the $3,000 range or less. Specifically, this screen has a 10-inch screen. There's a USB port for saving images and files. You can also hook this up to printers for printing images on site. And also you can save internally if you're out and about and can't print or save at the time. This machine, like I said, once again, is good for both large and small animals. The 2 probes we have here, right now this is, if I can hold it here, this is a curved probe, micro-convex, and this one has a frequency range from 5 to 8.5. So that's a higher frequency, which means higher resolution and better image quality. A lot of the other competition's machines, such like a WED918, for example, they'll have the same type of probe, except your frequency is going to be a lot less. You'll be probably closer from 3 to 5 megahertz. And that function provides much lesser quality images, especially for smaller animals. So while that's okay for large animals, if you're only doing large animals, that's good. This one lets you do both. So it's the best of both worlds. Another one, this is a linear probe, also a rectal probe for animals. The face plate here you can see is pretty large. These are 70 millimeters, so 7 centimeters. A lot of the other machines are smaller, so the smaller the field of view here, smaller in millimeters, the smaller the image, the less clear. It's just better to have a bigger screen and more imaging. So that's another positive thing about this machine. Other aspects, this machine comes with other languages preset. You can have French, Russian, Chinese, English of course, Portuguese, and Spanish, of course. So as for now, we'll have some videos later on. We'll show the functions, the use, but once again, the KX2600 KV is an excellent machine for beginners and for everybody in between.